My name is James Brook. I am a director of photography from Johannesburg, South Africa. I am joined here with my two colleagues, Retabile and Heather. They are going to help me answer some of the questions that I may not be able to answer. Depends on how hard they are. So today we're going to be talking about production and some of the trends in production and some best practices. Now, obviously, I'm speaking from a DP's point of view, but I've tried to make this as inclusive for as many roles in production as possible. So first, I'm going to just mention what the role of director of photography is. So as the director of photography, I play a crucial role in bringing the director's vision to life through my expertise in camera work, lighting, and visual storytelling. This contributes significantly to the overall aesthetic and impact of the film. Right? So that's just a little brief description of my role. So also wanted to mention, sorry that there's no visuals. There's some IT issues. Apparently this projector does not like Apple products, so I can't get a picture up there for some reason. But moving on, I'm going to be talking about some best practices within production, right? So the first is collaboration and communication, right? So collaboration and communication on set, in production, in post-production. From my perspective specifically, I work closely with the director and other key departments. This is to understand the vision of the film, right? The effective communication ensures that everyone is aligned and the DP can translate that vision into real storytelling. So we then look at technical proficiency, right? So technical proficiency, as a DP, I would need to have a deep understanding of camera equipment, right? I need to understand lighting techniques, lenses, and other technical aspects of cinematography. I need to stay updated with the latest advancements in technology. This is crucial for adapting to different shooting scenarios. I'm sure we've all been in situations where we're not really sure how the gear works, and that can be avoided with technical proficiency, right? Do your homework before you land up on set. That's when the pressure is on and the director's breathing down your neck, and so are the ADs, and so is everyone. So, make sure you know your gear before you get on set. So another best practice is having a creative vision, right? So having a creative vision goes beyond technical skills. Being a strong DP brings creative vision to the table. You must be able to visualize how scenes will look on the screen. You need to make informed decisions on framing, camera movement, and lighting to enhance the storytelling of the film. Another best practice that we're looking at is preparation and planning, right? So preparation and planning is incredibly important. You have to have thorough pre-production. This is key. It's paramount to the success of your film. In some of the talks that we were in yesterday, people were asking questions regarding, how to properly structure budgets within films and those kinds of aspects. And if you don't have that all locked in before you step foot on set, you're heading for trouble. You're going to run out of money before you know it. Filming already costs a lot of money, and not accounting for everything and understanding exactly where every rand is going is a dangerous path to go down. You're going to be halfway through your film and you're going to run out of money and you're not going to know what to do. So preparation and planning is key. This also includes scouting locations, discussing shot lists, storyboards, and creating a visual plan to execute the director's vision accurately and effectively. A big skill to bring to any production is adaptability and problem solving, right? On set, unexpected challenges will arise. Like, there will be challenges, just expect them, and they come out of nowhere. So, problems will arise, and it depends on how you approach that problem. That will either mean that it's resolved and you can continue filming, or that you end up losing days and therefore losing money and end up not finishing the project. So from my perspective, a good DP remains adaptable and finds creative solutions to overcome obstacles, whether it's adjusting to changing weather conditions or solving technical issues that may arise on set. Random things can happen, and in particular, something that I thought of here in Botswana is the heat, right? So it's incredibly hot here. So if you're filming outdoors, you've got to have some kind of plan to make sure that your gear doesn't overheat, right? Whether that's the camera or the wireless video that the director is now not receiving a picture. You know, you got to preempt these things and think about what can go wrong and make sure that you are ready for it should it arise, right? Now, another key aspect for my role as a DP on set is leadership, but that also includes team collaboration. So the DP leads the camera and lighting crew specifically, right? They should be able to delegate effectively, making sure that everyone knows their roles and that they are able to do it as quickly as possible. Remember that on set, time is money. So literally every minute that people waste or take extra time to set up something, it all accumulatively adds up. Suddenly, by the end of the day, you've lost an hour. Suddenly, by the end of the week, you've lost 8 hours. You know, so those hours are precious. And it's only towards the end of production that you realize, damn, I wish I had like one extra day. But actually, you wasted a day through small things that happen on set and people not knowing exactly what they need to do. So leadership and collaboration is essential to making sure that you not only achieve the look that you're trying to achieve, but that you get it done within the time frame that you're expected to. Basically, the goal is to foster a collaborative atmosphere, and this is to achieve the desired visual outcome. A majorly important detail is attention to details, right? So paying attention to details is critical in cinema to many aspects that you see within the frame, right? Because as a DP, yes, technically I'm in charge of camera decisions as well as lighting decisions. But I have a viewpoint into this world, and it's as much my responsibility to make sure that everything in that frame is correct. You know, no coffee cups left, or no rubbish left on set, or no gear that's been accidentally left within the frame. So even though my role is not directly a part of like art or set design, you know, it is a huge part of my job to make sure that the people who are in charge of those roles have done their job correctly. Because at the end of the day, you know, if you are Game of Thrones and you have a Starbucks cup in your frame, you know, someone's got to have to answer for that. And it is rather embarrassing when you put it on the big screen and then you see it there. Sometimes it's easy to miss little details like that when you're only looking at a screen like this, but then when it's on the big screen, you know, those issues become a lot more apparent. So like I was mentioning earlier, a massive, massive part of production and any successful production is time management. Guys, I cannot stress this enough. Time management is everything, you know, especially if you are using or relying on natural light, right? If you are filming outdoors and the sun is disappearing, every minute counts. So if you are not able to effectively manage your time during the shoot, you're going to head for problems. Keeping the production on schedule is not only saves money, but it also ensures that the team remains focused and motivated, right? Something that I want to touch on as well, which is not an immediate thought when it comes to production, is emotional intelligence and sensitivity, right? Like at the end of the day, you have to remember that everyone that you are working with are people, right? And we all have our own backgrounds and our own scenarios that we're coming from. And I think that it's incredibly important to remember and that people are human beings and that everyone should be treated with respect. Even if people make a mistake, it doesn't give anyone the right to treat them any less. Mistakes are learning opportunities, not, as they say in South Africa, an eetgak sessie, which is shitting on someone. So understanding the emotional impact of the visuals is also incredibly important. A great DP knows how to evoke emotions through lighting, composition, and camera movements. This will enhance the narrative, you know. So the audience doesn't even always understand exactly why they feel a certain way, but that emotion has been invoked through very specific decisions on set, through camera work, lighting, composition, framing, blocking. All of that builds towards creating an emotional response in the viewer. They don't even necessarily know why, but the visuals create that sense for them, right? So post-production collaboration, because the project is not done when you on the last day of shoot. There's a lot of time that needs to be spent collaboratively in post-production. Working closely with the editing team in post-production ensures that the intended visual style and continuity are maintained, even after the filming is completed. So my specific role in that would heavily be involved in the edit and the grade, right? So, if I'm watching an edit and I recognize that there was actually a better take than what was used in the edit, or if the grade is not quite creating the right visuals, I need to be able to step in and sit with the editor and actually guide that process. So, the last day of shoot is not the last day of production. It often goes on for months after the final day of shooting. So, yeah, those are some of the best practices. I don't know if anyone has any questions before I move on to the next section. Just keeping in mind that specifically, I'm a director of photography, right? I will answer as many questions as I can. I realize that production is a really broad topic. So I don't know if anyone has any questions about what we've discussed so far. No? Okay. All right, so something that I realized in some of the other master classes is that there is a huge emphasis or a huge concern from the people attending those classes about budget and how to achieve what you want to achieve with very little budget to no budget, basically. So how can we achieve high quality results on a tight budget? Right? So I'm going to go through a few key points that I keep in mind going into productions to save money. I know we all dream of Aries and Reds and all those beautiful toys, but at the end of the day, if you can't afford it, you need to be able to create a high quality product regardless. So the very, very first building block of any production is your script and story, right? So script and story are paramount to the success of the film, because you can film some beautiful stuff, but if your script and story are trash, I mean, people are not going to engage with what you've created, right? They're not going to look at this and feel an emotional response. It's just going to be a series of pretty pictures, right? So you have to focus on a compelling story as your film's foundation. That is building block number one. After that, we look at thorough pre-production. We need to plan meticulously to maximize resources and time. By the time you step foot on set, you should know exactly what it is that you're trying to achieve. You don't want to be stepping on set with your director and trying to figure it out as you go. Because again, you're going to waste a lot of time and you're going to end up running out of money and you're going to end up with big problems. So everything from storyboards to, hell, even sitting in on readings, when your actors are going through script read-throughs. I mean, I like to try and sit in on those if I can, because it starts giving me an idea of who the characters are before I've even stepped on set. Right? So the more you can understand about your characters and your story before you step on set, the better your visual language will be when it comes to actually creating that story. Creative location use, right? So we have to utilize unique settings without excessive construction. Sometimes the best results actually come from an environment that you find as is. You don't have to create that environment, right? So an example for me is in Johannesburg, South Africa, the Central Business District. There are aspects of the CBD that are incredibly run down, right? And they are dilapidated buildings. Now, obviously for the passerby, that's not great, but for a filmmaker, I mean, that's an amazing set, just waiting. You know, the texture is there, the lived-in nature of that environment is there. And generally speaking, when it comes to your locations, if you're trying to create that, it takes time and money, you know, to create that authentic lived-in feel that you could potentially find already exists, and you could just maybe adapt the space a little bit to your needs, you know. So getting creative with location use will not only save you a lot of time in terms of building sets, but it will also save you a lot of money, right? Because hopefully it's just a location fee, and that's pretty much it. Mastering your lighting techniques is a big one, right? So using natural light or affordable lighting setups to create impact. Now, like I was saying, the sun is the greatest light resource we have, right? There's nothing better than the sun. So if you can get creative and utilize natural light, well, guess what? Your lighting budget has now gone to 0 pila or 0 rands or $0 or whatever you're using, right? So the only aspect of that is that obviously the sun goes down, so the time is ticking. So if you are establishing that you're using natural light within your film, you've got to keep time management as a key point in your mind throughout the day. If there's one way to make your DP upset is trying to shoot at the end of the day when your sun is going down and you haven't completed the scene yet. You know, that's a fast way to have frustrations on set. And also inconsistencies, right? Because you need to shoot it in a way that it doesn't feel like the passage of time is moving, right? You have to shoot it, even if you're shooting one scene over a whole day, you got to figure out ways to shoot it that it doesn't feel like that scene plays out over a whole day. Because obviously the sun goes from there to there, right? So you have to be creative with it so that the continuity of time is correct. Otherwise, it starts feeling a little bit disjointed, especially if you start losing light at the end of the day and you've only gotten through half of your scene and suddenly they're going from day into night and that was not part of the story, you know, and it doesn't work for continuity. So using natural light is a big time saver, but it's also a big test of time management. One of the biggest things that you can do to create high quality results on a budget is to use cost-effective equipment, right? So like I mentioned earlier, it's all well and good, you know, dreaming of the big cameras and the big brands and all of the expensive toys that, you know, I don't even get to play with a lot of the time. The budgets just simply don't allow it, right? So I brought a camera here to show you guys. This is a Sony a7S III, right? So I've kitted this out to be what I think is production ready. But now this is an incredibly affordable camera. I mean, this costs maybe like 2% of what an ARRI would cost, right? So whether your production is looking at buying outright or renting, you can end up with a much more cost-effective kit and still achieve really high results and high quality results if you understand the camera and you have that familiarity with what settings will give you the best results, right? So the other nice thing about this camera is that it has incredible low light capabilities. So if you're doing a shoot that is based at night or you know, you're in a low light situation, this camera will give you better results than what an ARRI will, right? Because an ARRI is a fantastic camera, but you have to have good lighting in order to get the full stops of dynamic range. Now this camera offers you settings that basically see in the dark, right? So it's almost like a little cheat sheet that you can use something that is affordable, but will actually give you great results within low light and nighttime scenes. I mean, nighttime scenes on this camera just look fantastic. Every time I shoot at night with it, my heart is happy because it sees everything that I need it to see, you know. Yeah, so anyway, that's just a small example, you know, of a production-ready camera that is an affordable option. So the other big way of you know, saving money so that you can put that budget towards other aspects of your production is having a minimal crew, right? Now, I know that that's a bit of a scary thought because, you know, on set you want people to have dedicated roles so that you don't have to think about a lot of stuff outside of your own role. But having a lean cast and crew, it keeps teams small for multitasking and intimate storytelling. You know, there are ways of looking at how to minimize crew. Sometimes on some of my shoots, like with this camera, I will forego a focus puller, right? That is a huge savings towards production that can be used somewhere else. The reason why I opt for that is because this camera offers fantastic autofocus options, right? So depending on your scene, depending on what you're trying to achieve, you can very well achieve it using the autofocus. And there is a plethora of resources available on YouTube to teach you exactly how it works and how to get good results using autofocus. Now, I wouldn't suggest that anyone uses it unless you have had the opportunity to practice and maybe look at some learning material using it. But once you understand the system, it can save you a lot of time and money. It's actually an incredible savings not having a focus puller, particularly if it's a multicam setup, right? So the other thing is DIY solutions, right? So, you know, if you think about like how you were as kids and you want to pretend like you're a superhero or you're a fireman or you're a whatever it was that you were pretending to be, you would find stuff in your environment to make that reality more true to you, right? You'll find an outfit that you can, you know, cut up or do whatever with that will make you feel more like a fireman. Now, that's a very basic example, but you can take the same mentality into production, right? So if you are on an incredibly tight budget, you know, look at home first with what you have. Maybe home is your location. Maybe home provides you your wardrobe. Maybe home provides you your set dressing. You know, you can look towards yourself before you seek outside, right? Because tight budget, you know, you just got to make do with what you have. And I think sometimes that facilitates a lot of creativity as well, you know. Let's see. So I think you guys have a great opportunity here at the Botswana International Film Festival, because a great way to improve your budgets is by, you know, collaborating and networking with people. So you have to engage with local talent and seek partnerships with other filmmakers. Now, there is a huge gathering of filmmakers and people in the industry here. So don't be shy. Introduce yourself to people, see what they do. You never know. You know, whoever you are in the elevator with, going up to your room, introduce yourself. He might be a producer. He might be a funder. He might be a director. You never know, right? So collaboration and networking can go a long way. And I think as long as you aren't too shy, you'll find a lot of opportunity that way. So the last point that I have on how you can achieve your high quality results is you have to utilize what free resources are available to you. You know, accessing online tutorials to improve a lighting look or to understand a new way of shooting or a new way of editing. You know, there is so much of this information online. I mean, you almost don't even need to go to film school anymore to understand what it is to make a film, right? Don't put that sort of gatekeeping mentality on yourselves. I mean, YouTube is probably the most valuable filmmaking resource on the planet. You know, you will learn more. Unfortunately, it's not practical, but you'll learn more in theory there than you will in any part of the world, right? The best way of learning is on set, but before you get to set, YouTube is your friend. Yeah, so are there any questions about any of that? My man at the back.
How do you adapt your cinematographic style when working on projects of different genres in terms of without shooting in drama or animation?
So I think that the lighting style and the approach that you take is very much dictated by the genre that you're filming, right? But don't let that box you in. It's not like there is a clear-cut formula to say, if it's a drama, film it this way. If it's a comedy, film it this way. Because I've actually seen a lot of films that end up on Netflix and all these platforms where when I watch it and it's a comedy and I can see they've used drama style lighting, you know, but it actually works. So don't think that there is one clear-cut way. But often the thing that I try to adapt to is what is the emotion that you're trying to evoke out of the scene, right? Because no matter what the genre of the film is, you know, certain scenes will require a certain tone and a certain response from the audience. So if it's maybe, you know, you want your audience to feel sad or shocked or, you know, you would use dramatic lighting, even if it is a comedy, right? So you use your lighting to evoke that emotion. I know that there are sort of guidelines as to what lighting goes with what genre. You know, they'll say that if it's a comedy, you have to go for high key, bright, like happy lighting. But it's not true, right? You have to remember at the end of the day that filmmaking is the same as painting, right? It's the same as creating a work of art. So your lighting, you need to decide as the cinematographer what lighting will evoke the correct response from the audience. And, you know, once you have an understanding of the scenes, you can then take that information, go to YouTube, look up how to create dramatic lighting or how to do high key lighting. You know, once you understand the scene, because the scene will dictate. So once you understand the scene, take that and then figure out what style of lighting you're going to go with. I don't know if that answers your question. I hope it does.
Can I, just from a director's perspective?
Yeah, yeah.
I direct sitcom, drama, and soapies. And for things like soap opera, you've got to think about how your audience is going to consume it. And they're going to be watching it on their home television screens when they're busy doing other things. Because usually it goes out at between 6 and 7. And most of the time it's something their family will watch. But you've got mom in the kitchen cooking, you've got people coming in and out. And so a lot of soapy style is quite close up. And that's so that if you are busy and it's coming into your house every day, so it's not like a movie where you're really focusing. There's lots of stuff going on. And so a lot of it is shot close up because you're wanting to see what the emotional intent is. It's a lot of, because it's shot in studio, it's a lot of dialogue, it's not broad, expansive of exterior scenes. It's all shot inside. So you shoot it, you know, you need to establish a scene and have wide stuff. And the minute there's movement, you'll obviously, you want to go wider. But when people are sitting having dialogue, you do quite, film it quite close because a lot of it is, especially with the action scenes, you wanting to see what the emotional state is of that person. And if they're about to cry or they're having a moment where the scene changes, their state of what they're thinking changes, you go as close as possible to see what's happening in their faces, to understand what's going on. And on the other hand, when you're shooting comedy, especially with something like physical comedy, you're wanting to see what's happening with their bodies because it could be slapstick. And that you shoot wider because you're wanting to make sure that you get the physical, you're getting the physical side of what it is that they're doing. And you then, you know, switch it up. Obviously, when there's a punchline, you go tighter as well, because if they're doing a dialogue punchline, you're wanting to see what how they deliver that line, and then everyone else's reactions. So you shoot that a lot tighter. So it's something we're doing a directing masterclass tomorrow, and I'll touch a little bit more on how to shoot for specific genres. But maybe that'll help a little bit more on what you're doing. So does that answer a bit of a question? Yeah.
Okay, we had another one there. What's up, man?
My name is Pierre. My question is, speaking of lighting, I wanted to know if lighting can make a picture quality better when you're just using a but my question is, lighting is cheaper than cameras, according to me. So can I invest more on lighting to improve my picture quality?
You're on 100% the right path. I think that the biggest difference that you will be able to achieve on a small budget is investing in your lighting. You will get a better result using a cheap low-end camera with a decent lighting package than you will with a decent camera and a bad lighting package. Lighting has the most dramatic effect on your image that you can achieve. So yes, you are 100% correct. The next thing that you should look at is lenses, right? So if you can upgrade your lighting kit as well as your lens kit, it almost doesn't really matter what camera you're using. Because if you have quality lighting and quality lenses, that is like 80% of your image sorted right there. And even going further, an understanding of those lenses and an understanding of lighting and how it impacts your image is going to go a long way. I think that, you know, the beautiful thing about filmmaking in this day and age is that good equipment is becoming cheaper and cheaper, right? So if you look at like 10 to 20 years ago, if you wanted a really high quality lighting package, you would have to look at something like a ARRI sky panel kit with, you know, ARRI HMIs for big sunlight coming through windows and that kind of thing. Now you'll spend, sorry, I only know rands. I don't know what it would be in Pila, but in rands you'd be looking at least R1 million just for a lighting kit, right? Now there are brands that are coming out now that I'm not sure if you guys have heard of, but my favorite brand to use is called Aperture. Aperture Lighting, right? They produce incredibly high quality products and incredibly accurate products. Now, something that makes lights good is how accurate they are to sunlight. So something that you want to look for in any product that you're using, whether you're buying or renting it, is what is called the CRI rating, right? The CRI rating is basically telling you how accurate is this light compared to sunlight. So if you have a CRI of 95% and above, that is production-ready equipment. I'm sure that we've all experienced those moments where you use like cheap LEDs, right? And it all looks fine when you're on set and you're using it, wada. You go into post and suddenly skin color looks weird. It's like there'll be a bit of a pinkishness or a bit like of a greeniness like in the skin tones. Now that's because you're using a light with a very low CRI rating. It means that to your eye, you are seeing it as white light. But what the camera is picking up is undertones of other random colors. That is a fast way to cause a nightmare in post. I mean, you know, it's not even like attractive colors, right? So it's not like you can really work with it. Like people look like Teletubbies, you know, it's terrible. So the higher your CRI rating, the better. And I 100% recommend brands like Aperture, Nanlite is another good one. Godox makes great lights. You can end up getting the equivalent of maybe an ARRI M18 for a fraction of the price in something like a Aperture 1200D. So an Aperture 1200D puts out the same amount of light as your traditional HMIs, but the beauty about them is that you can just plug them into wall sockets. So you don't need fancy boards and you don't need generators, you don't need anything to run these big lights. You can just plug it into house power. So wherever there's a plug, you just plug it in, no problem. So it's super easy to use, really convenient. You can even get V-lock battery attachments for those lights. So if you're in the middle of the veld or you're in the mountains or wherever you find yourself, you can actually operate them off batteries. You know, so now you have silent operation and remote operation with really high quality light. So Aperture lights, I recommend them to all of you. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, what's up? Yeah.
Oh, thank you. My name is Mkebe. Very much interested to understand who actually has the final say in terms of the shots to be taken on set. Is it the director or the cinematographer? And if it's the cinematographer, to what extent? Who actually is the one that calls the shots? Because from what you're explaining, there's an element of creativity that must come from the
Yes.
cinematographer.
Yes.
But then from the explanation of the director, I just wanted to ask him, at that moment of your addition towards the explanation to him, what are we saying here? Is it the director who has the upper hand on the determination of the shots to take on set?
So I guess as like a general rule, right? So director is this is technically, right? Because on set it doesn't always end up like this. But technically director is in charge of your story, your actors, and your performances, right? The director of photography is in charge of image, lighting, framing, camera work, right? So it is my job to interpret what the director wants. So yes, ultimately on a technical level, it's up to me, the director of photography, right? Because the director would be leaning on my skills to achieve what they want to achieve. Now, the director might want to, end up on a close shot or have a certain type of blocking. I like to work collaboratively, so I would lean in with the director, understand what it is that they want to achieve, and if they are you get different levels of directors, right? So you get directors that maybe are just story driven and they are not very technical. They don't understand camera as well as you do. That's when they'll be leaning on you a lot. That's when basically every decision in terms of camera is up to you. But you have to gauge how technical your director is, right? Because I have had the opportunity to work with a lot of very technical directors who at one point were DPs themselves. So they have a full understanding of camera. Directors who are very strict and are very, for lack of a better word, they take themselves very seriously, right? And rightfully so. I mean, you should take your craft seriously, so it's not a negative. But if a director has done the blocking and they've explained to you how they want the scene to play out, and you've looked at it through camera in a camera rehearsal, by the time you've gone through all of those steps, it's almost too late to make suggestions now, right? Because you need to have a technical proficiency and understanding so that when the director is telling you how the scene plays out, you are already seeing what problems may come up or how it can be potentially done better. And that's the part where you discuss those ideas, right? So in the blocking, so it might even come down to, and again, it depends on your director, but sometimes it's like, the director will be like, yeah, the blocking, and the guy comes and lands here. But I know that the best lighting is if he lands here, right? It's a small change. It doesn't necessarily change the story a huge amount, but it's not my decision to say, yo, actor, please land here instead of there. I go to my director and I say, listen, I think that if we had them just creeping out a little bit more, we'll end up with better lighting, better framing, we'll end up with all these positives, right? So you have to pick your time to make suggestions that change what the director wants, and also be ready to accept that they might just shut you down and be like, no, I don't want it that way, so deal with it. So it's a fine line, right? And the relationship between the director of photography and the director is very much intertwined. And I would say that who has the final say on anything image related is the director of photography. Anything performance, blocking, story related is director. But again, that's only technically, right? That's how it is on paper. But at the end of the day, filmmaking is a collaborative effort. So I would say that, in my opinion, it's both of your decisions. And working together on a project like that often makes it better. Because what I am not seeing, maybe you can see. And what you are not seeing, maybe I can see. So collaboration brings out the best results, in my opinion. So I think if you are a DP, it's important to get to know your director, spend some time with them, especially in pre-production, in terms of your storyboarding, your visual style, your look and feel, all of that stuff. That is the best space to get to know who and what your director is, right? So that's where you can gauge what kind of person this is. Is this a collaborative person? Is this a dictator, right? What is my working relationship going to be like with this person? And they don't know that I'm sussing them out, but that's where I do it, right? That's where I get to know them and understand how far am I going to push what I want and how far am I going to allow them to impact what I do.
So it's different with every scenario. It's difficult to give a clear-cut answer on that one, but technically you know what it is. Okay.
And just from a director's
Yeah.
perspective on that, for me, working with a DP like James is a huge luxury as a director. I love working with someone who has that much involvement in the picture. What you sometimes, and I do a lot of studio directing, so that's a different, it's a multicam environment, and there you have 3 cameramen, and you have a lighting, but as a director, you are then part DP, part director. So every single shot that we film is marked up on the script beforehand, and it's mixed live. So you don't do as much editing at all. Most of it is actually edited live as you're filming it, which means that every single shot choice is yours as a director. Angle, there's a lighting department, and but it's more a, you'll say to your lighting department, it's a nighttime scene. I want it to be mood lighting, but because you've got 3 cameras, you can't film for every single camera, and you've got 3 people then who are cameramen, and you don't have a DP. So it also depends on how you're filming, where you're filming. Multicam, studio directing, director then.
Like if you want camera 1 to go like close up,
Mm.
you tell them.
So what you do is on your script, you bring it up. And if you want at some stage, I'll show you how we mark up the script. But you block everyone on your floor plan. So you get your floor plan of where everything is, and for dialogue 9 to 15, you want your actor to move from the bar to the couch, sit down on that line of dialogue.
You know, so there, like I was mentioning earlier, like equipment is getting cheaper, like good equipment is getting cheaper. So if you look into the stuff that's available in terms of sound, in terms of camera, in terms of lights, all of that stuff, good equipment is becoming more and more accessible. Now, I realize that when you start off and there's no budget, even those pieces of equipment are not as accessible as you would like them to be. But like I say, I think you just got to work with what you have. So look inward, right? Like use environments that exist already. Use natural light. Find a cheap lapel mic that you can put on someone, even if it's one that just goes into your phone, right? Those things are incredibly cheap. And see it as stepping stones, right? So just because that's where you are today, it doesn't mean that's where you will be tomorrow. And a lot of the time, effort is acknowledged over technical prowess, because if you can show your vision, even if it isn't technically as sound as it should be, people will still recognize that, right? So just because there are some technical issues doesn't mean that you can't be recognized for great potential. You know what I mean? So my advice would be that even if you don't have access to the stuff, do it anyway, make the mistakes and learn from those mistakes. Be critical of your own work. Don't only study other people's work, study your own work and decide what has this piece of film or short film or show or whatever it is, how can I make it better next time? You know, the amount of times that I sat in post looking at my footage where I was like, man, I'm such an idiot. Like, I could have gotten such a better angle if I was just like a little bit over there, or if I'd gone across the road. Or, you know, when you are reviewing your own work, that's when you start realizing what you missed. And don't let that discourage you. See it as an opportunity to get those shots next time. You know what I mean? So use your own work as learning material as well. I hope that answers your question. Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. I heard you talking of equipment, like the camera.
Yeah.
You gave an example with your camera.
Yeah.
Low budget equipment, but very good quality. I wanted to ask, where do you think, or where can you recommend for us to have or get access to buy these equipment? Can I go like in websites like Alibaba and
No. Don't go Alibaba. No Alibaba. They won't sell you real stuff, man. B&H is fantastic, but now you're talking about purchasing, hey, as opposed to renting.
Yes.
Okay, where are you from? Are you from Botswana?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're local. So I mean, you guys will tell me. I don't know. Are there local rental houses, like gear rental houses?
Mostly what I've seen, I'm not sure. Individuals who have bought equipment, then
They will rent it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then mostly the people who sell the equipment are mostly Chinese.
Okay.
And or maybe Kenyan Street, but mostly.
Look, the Chinese make most of the equipment these days, man. Look, I would say that when you're starting out, it's dangerous to purchase equipment. I wouldn't recommend purchasing stuff, right? As much as you can rent and or borrow, I think that leans into what I was saying about networking and collaboration, because you can work deals with people, right? So if you go to the local rental guy, if he has like a little company logo or something, you say, you know, can we work out a deal where we have your company in the credits? Or can we work out something, because this is what I'm trying to achieve, but I don't have the budget for the gear that I need. So what can we do to make you lending us the equipment worth your while? Whether that be I mean, we were talking about it in Tabi's presentation yesterday about incorporating brands into your show in a natural way. So if budget is a problem, collaboration becomes your next step. And you figure out how you can get that equipment and include it in the show so that maybe they get a little bit of advertising, or, I mean, Tabs, you have a better understanding of that stuff. But yeah, I wouldn't advise buying. The problem with buying is, as well, technology is moving along so quickly that, you know, by the time it's a year or two out, they bring out a newer version that does way better things, you know. So I think that if you're in a position where you are filming often and you have a full calendar, yes, sure, buying makes sense, because then you can use it throughout all of your productions. But if you're working on small projects with small budgets, buying is going to destroy whatever budget you do have. You know, rather use that budget for other things than buying. But B&H is a great one. If you are looking to buy, then B&H is a good one. Okay.
Hi guys, my name is Nick, and I was just going to say I really appreciated the questions and the conversations that are coming from these guys, because they articulated them very well from what I was thinking. But then here's the thing, like my friend here was saying, you know, we come from like a smaller industry where we have to play every role. Where you're the producer, you're the director, you're the DP, you're the light guy, the sound guy. And
You are everyone.
So sometimes even when it gets to collaborations, it's really difficult to know what your role is, because you're also working with somebody who does everything at the same time that you do everything as well. So there becomes a little bit of a clash where nobody really knows exactly what role they're supposed to be. So I was hoping that maybe you guys could give us a little bit of more practical examples from some of the projects that you've done. You know what I mean? Heather says she's produced all the soapies that we've ever watched. Give us a little bit of an example of, like, this is, for example, this is something that I've worked on, and when I was working on that project, this is the type of team we had. We had so many people doing this, so many people doing that. Even you, for example, if you can just give us a little bit of practical examples from some of the work that you've done, just to give a little bit of a...
So I think it also really depends on what the project is, right? Because depending on what you're trying to achieve, you can achieve it with very few people. Like, is this a documentary where you're just interviewing people and then capturing B-roll? Because if that's the case, you can probably do everything yourself. Is this a drama or a film? Because in that case, you have to have a whole room full of people with dedicated positions, right? I think I've been lucky enough to work in a space where I have a dedicated role for a while, and it's a hard question to answer, actually, because I guess where you are at and you're relying on yourself to do so many things, I mean, all you can really do is try and collaborate with people. And something that I would recommend before you even press record is just make sure that you understand what each of you are going to be doing. Now, that's as simple as just leaning into what are your strengths, right? Like, what are you more interested in? Even if it is just like an interest thing and you have no experience, what are you more interested in? Are you more interested in sound? Are you more interested in picture? Are you more interested in story? Are you more interested in editing? Like, what are your interests? And then just lean into it, right? So that everyone has that clear-cut understanding of what their role is going to be going forward. Now, like I say, my preferred way of working is always a collaborative one. So there's always a structure of who has what role. But there's a little bit of wiggle room between each of them for collaboration, right? So I am not an editor, but I can sit with the editor and help make editing decisions. Ultimately, it's their decision, but I can also help guide the process without stepping on toes, right? So I think as long as you understand what people's strengths are and you also respect each other, right? Because it's not about being the loudest voice in the room, even though that's what the director would like to think. It's always about collaboration and most of all about respecting each other's craft. And I think as long as you respect people and respect the work that they do, they will always give you their cooperation and be more willing to collaborate without, getting funny about stepping on toes.
Just to jump in there. I think since James has been chatting about best practice, one of the things that we do, regardless of the size of the production, so whether we're shooting a little PSA for guide dogs versus shooting a feature film, is we always have a production meeting.
Yeah.
And that's where you get all your HODs together. Everybody's in a room. We know that we're spending half of the day to the full day together, going through the script if it is like a full feature with a long script, reading every single scene together, and stopping after each scene going, okay, well, as HODs, sound, what is your question? What are your concerns for this scene? And they'll be like, well, if we're shooting this outside, I would need to make sure that we do X, Y, and Z. And everybody makes notes of that, so we all understand that when we're shooting that scene, sound needs this. And then we'll get to the next scene, and then lighting or camera will point out that we need this. Or wardrobe and makeup will go, well, because this person is being shot, we're gonna need, I don't know, director, how many takes are you thinking of taking? Because then we're gonna need 3 or 4 shirts that would be done. So I think it's very important just to have conversations, to really just sit in the room before everybody starts running around, because once everybody's running around, it's gone. Communication becomes slightly harder, right? But just to get everybody in the room so that we're on the same page. Directors telling everybody, this is how I'm thinking of shooting it. DOP is talking to what they need. Every single department has a chance to speak. And so especially if you're going to be talking to 2 departments of the way you're working now, if you're doing 2 or 3 things, everybody understands exactly what you're doing or what your focus is, because you've spoken about everything from the beginning. So that then when we're on set, I'm not going to be surprised when you've put down the boom and you're doing something else, because we discussed it in that long meeting.
Yeah.
And people hate that meeting. It's the whole day. It's very long. But it saves you a lot of problems in the long run if you've just gone through every single thing that could potentially go wrong and we've spoken about it.
Yeah.
I'm glad. That was lovely. I'm glad you're getting a chance to chat to you guys now, because if you are going to be doing the workshop tomorrow on directing, at least then it's informing what kind of things that you want to know from the director's side. I work on both location and studio, but what I have when I work on in studio as a director, we have all the bells and whistles, and it's well funded and there's a good budget and we've got all of that. But when you take the same studio people and you have to film on location, it's a different thing, and we don't have the budgets that feature films do. And so I've often been in a position where we've had to go and film stuff that will then mix in with the studio film stuff, but it's on low budget with people who haven't had skilled experience in that specific job. They're a cameraman on set, but they're not a DP. Or they're a lighting person on set, but they don't know how to use natural light. And so I'm going to try and find examples of those scenes that I've done where we've literally had no budget and we've had a very small crew to do it. And we've often had very big ideas and big plans, and the producer said, go and shoot it. And that's when, for me, innovation, creativity, fun happens, because you don't have a budget, but you've got a story to tell. And I think a lot of your audience want 2 things. They want a good story and they want good acting. Those are the two things that if you don't have that, your engagement and your believability go out the window. Everything else you've got to work damn hard to try and get, but once you've got those two things, the rest of it, you end up being more innovative than you would ordinarily be, and having to really think outside the box. So I will bring a couple of examples of where we've had to do that, and some of them are really funny. When you see what happens behind the scenes and how we've had to try and manufacture something that on screen people will believe. They have been forgiving in terms of it's not a Hollywood production, but you're telling your story in the best possible way that you can, and that's what your audience is going to respond to. And especially now we're all making our own movies on our phones, there is a less of an expectation, but you stick to your story and you make sure that your performances are good, and then the rest of it you wing it in the best way you possibly can.
Speaking of that, what time is it for tomorrow?
I think it's at 11. Yeah.
And I think something else that can help inform your work and help expand like your visual vocabulary is having a look at what's already been done, right? So go and watch your favorite film. Pick a scene from that film and take elements from that film and try and recreate it, right? Create your own version of that scene. Like use inspiration that already exists and use that as a guideline. As soon as you have that and you've created that visual sort of vocabulary and skill set, you can then start creating your own stuff from there, right? Like one of my favorite things to do, or one of the projects where I had the most fun was where the director was choosing iconic scenes from like old films, like black and white films. Right, and he was putting his own spin on it and leaning on me to help create like a new version of those old scenes, and it's incredibly fun. It's a really nice way of like sort of building that visual narrative in your mind. But yeah, that's just one last little note on that. I think that we're going to need to close soon. I just have one last thing that I want to mention, and you know, I know that budgets are incredibly constrained and that you have to do a lot of the stuff yourself, but I just thought I'd mention 4 pieces of equipment that are fundamental to all of my productions, right? So one of them in terms of the camera is the Sony a7S Mark III. You can also look at a Sony FX3, which is you can use it outdoors in the heat, right? The other one for stabilization, DJI RS2 or 3. Right, just to get some stable shots. And the last thing is an Atomos Ninja V. That's an external recorder, right? It allows you to record in ProRes. Okay. So the last thing there is called an Atomos Ninja V, spelled ATOMOS. What this does is it acts as your monitor on your camera, right? But you can also use a lot of exposure tools. There's a lot of tools built in to help you nail your exposure. It's an external recorder, which means that you can record in ProRes, which is an incredibly high quality format that basically transforms this camera into a cine camera. So if you can use camera, this is the Atomos, right? You have a little wireless video, so your feed goes out to director. Everything's powered off one battery. I recently finished a feature film using this exact rig. So this is a cine-ready rig, and it costs a fraction of what your traditional high-end cameras would cost. I think that in rands, this would probably cost about, I think in total about 100,000, but that's to purchase it. Now, if you were renting this per day, you'd probably be looking at about 3,000, maybe 4,000 Rand a day. Okay. So that gives you an idea of how affordable high quality imagery can be, as long as you're smart about it. You know what I mean?
Now the use of GoPros,
Yeah.
Gadgets like the size of a GoPro, won't you say, because in documentary filming it has proven that it works far much best when using such high quality, or the concave or the convex image that it brings out.
That fisheye lens.
So look, I mean, I think depending on what you're shooting, if you're shooting a documentary, 100% you can use GoPros. I would recommend trying to find at least from GoPro Hero 9, maybe GoPro Hero 10. They have a lot of options on there to get rid of that fisheye look. There's an option on there called linear FOV. So it basically flattens it and makes the horizon straight so it looks more like a traditional camera. Yeah, so on any of those things, I use the linear option, and linear takes away that fisheye look. Okay, so I would definitely recommend using GoPros where you need to.
What lens did you slap on that?
So this one that I have here is a Sony G Master 24-70. Now this lens offers incredible autofocus capabilities, right? The facial recognition is incredible. Now, on the film that I completed, I didn't use this lens. I used a set of cine lenses called Rokinons. Now, Rokinons are incredibly affordable cine lenses. They're basically like the cheapest cine lens that you can get. So I would highly recommend them, Rokinon, Rokinon. And you can rent an entire kit of those for, I think, and that's from 16mm, 24mm, 35mm, 50mm, 85mm. You'll get for maybe like $3,000 a day.
For all of them?
Yeah, for all of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Point of correction, like if you are saying more than 20,000 in this one, it's not affordable for us.
Okay.
Like affordable for us, I mean, affordability starts from 1,000 to 1,000 for each one. Am I right, guys?
But that's okay, man. Look, whatever your budget is, you need to work within that budget. At the end of the day, even if I have zero money, I still have a camera in my pocket, right? So I can still film. So it's not necessarily about what gear you have, it's about the vision that you have. And if you use natural light correctly and a phone camera, you can still create a better image than someone who is using proper camera and doesn't understand lighting. Okay, so don't let the gear or the budget discourage you. Use what you have and understand how to use it to maximize your results. Okay.
It's great, James.
Okay, I think that's us for the day, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Alrighty.